Hi, the story I want to tell you today takes place in California, USA. With a strong and diverse economy, California is known as the center of entertainment technology and culture. The city of Los Angeles and San Francisco, located in California, are both vibrant urban centers and famous around the globe. The main character of the story is named Jaycee Dugard, born May 3rd, 1980. Jaycee is a smart and beautiful girl. She lives with her mother and stepfather. Her life is very happy. Her mother and stepfather love her very much. Initially, her family lived in Arcadia City of Los Angeles, but then her parents wanted to find a safer community for their children, so they moved to live in Mayorstown, about 700 kilometers away. June 10th, 1991. It was a Monday, the beginning of the week. That morning, Jaycee's mother, Terry Probin, who worked as a typesetter at a printer, went to work early in the morning. Jaycee was only 11 years old. She wore a favorite pink outfit and walked alone from home to the school bus stop. When she could go halfway, there was a gray car that stopped her head and pulled down the window. She thought that the man stopped the car to ask for directions, so she took the initiative to go straight there. But unexpectedly, the man in the car used an electric shotgun to attack her, causing her to be shocked. Then a woman in the car ran down quickly to carry her into the car and left. Jaycee's house was not far away by chance. Her stepfather, Carl Probin, happened to witness the scene of his daughter being dragged into the car right at home. He hurriedly chased the car, but it was too late. The father not only could not catch up, but even the license plate of the car could not see clearly. Only knew that there were two people in the car, including a woman. Immediately after that, he immediately called the police. The U.S. police responded very quickly. Within a few hours, the local media were constantly reporting on the incident and calling for the public to pay attention. They hoped for the cooperation of the whole people to rescue her as soon as possible. The police sent a large force of police to participate in the search. Helicopters and dogs were also deployed. There were also a lot of volunteers participated in the search team, but unfortunately, they could not find any clues. The police also used the description of classmates and Jaycee's stepfather to draw the portrait of the suspect. But after all, the distance they saw was too far. They could not guarantee the accuracy of the portrait. A few days later, tens of thousands of brochures and posters were sent to businesses all over Hoa. Because Jaycee's favorite color is pink, the town is covered with pink ice solvers as a reminder of her disappearance, and as a show of community support for Jaycee's family in order to further expand her influence. The mother also founded an organization called Jaycee's Hope to thank the volunteers for her mentorship and fundraising efforts. Then Jaycee's t-shirt, sports jacket, posters announcing the search for the missing were also widely spread. There was even a special singer composing a song for her. Jaycee. The incident quickly attracted nationwide attention, even appearing on the famous American TV show. America's Most Wanted, unfortunately, even though people tried hard but still could not find Jaycee. In desperation, the police began to wonder if the culprit was an acquaintance, and the first person they thought of was stepfather, because he was a direct witness. If he was the mastermind himself, it was understandable that the police did not find her. The police then took Jaycee's stepfather to the station for interrogation. They also checked to lie to him, but there was nothing unusual, so they removed him from the list of suspects. The second person the police thought of was her father, Mr. Ken Layton. They also suspected that perhaps because Mr. Ken wanted his daughter to stay with him, they applied some such coercive methods. But after investigating, they discovered that Ken did not even know that he had a child. It turned out that he and Jaycee's mother had been in a relationship, but then both broke up, and Jaycee's mother did not disclose that she had a child. So Jaycee's father was also removed from the list of suspects because he could not find anyone suspicious. The case has since stalled. Time passes. The case is gradually forgotten. It is rumored that Jaycee has been left in a deserted place and she is no longer alive. Despite the thoughts of many people, Jaycee's mother still does not give up. She always insists that her daughter is still alive. The notices about Jaycee have been distributed more than £1 million. Over time, people have also used technology to simulate her appearance when she grew up. But Jaycee seems to have disappeared from the world without leaving any clues. So where did she really go? What bad things did she have to go through? Next, we will push back the time back to that fateful day, June 10th, 1991. That day, after being dragged into the car, Jaycee vaguely heard a dialogue between a man and a woman. Oh my God, we really caught it and ran away successfully. It was unbelievable. When she completely regained consciousness, Jaycee was in Antioch, about 180 kilometers from her house. At that time, the world before her eyes completely changed. She was kept in a dilapidated warehouse, surrounded by a series of tents wrapped in plastic sheets, filled with old things and rubbish. At first glance, it looked like an abandoned backyard that no one noticed. The people who brought her here were a deranged couple. The husband was Philip Garrido, and the wife was Nancy Garrido. Phillips had a criminal record. He was born in California in 1951. After studying finished high school at the age of 21, he took a hand with a 14-year-old girl and played with her parachute, was arrested. But the girl's family, because to protect the honor of their child, did not allow her to testify in court, which helped Philip escape legal punishment. Then Phillips went on to a marriage. During their cohabitation, he constantly attacked his wife, made his wife want a divorce. At that time, he wanted to force his wife to follow him. Finally, the wife turned to the law, and the two divorced success. In 1976, 25-year-old Phillips kidnapped a 25-year-old woman named Catherine Calloway near South Lake Tahoe. The girl was kept in a warehouse for 5.5 hours and was cheated on. A police officer was patrolling, then paid attention to a car parked at the barn door, feeling strange. He went inside to check, which brought the matter to light. Confronted with Catherine's testimony in court, he was inexcusably helpless. He finally sentenced him to 50 years in prison. And the strange thing was that, while he was incarcerated, Nancy regularly visited his uncle in prison, and she fell in love with Philip, from which the two grew into a couple. On October 5th, 1981, Nancy and Philip were miraculously married in prison. By August 26, 1988, after 11 years in prison, Phillips had been paroled for good behavior and was wearing an electronic anklet. The local procuratorate would also regularly visit the house to prevent him from continuing to commit the crime. However, he did not show remorse but wanted to commit more crimes. His wife was kind of in trouble when she heard her husband's thoughts. She not only did not stop but also agreed to participate. So the couple cooperated in driving around the city. By chance, they saw Jaycee walking alone in the street, so they did not hesitate to take action with Jaycee, and finally kept her in the soundproof warehouse in the backyard. The recording studio was set up by Phillips himself, so even if the Jaycee screamed, no one would hear it. Then he handcuffed her and made her wear nothing and said, "It is forbidden to scream and leave the warehouse. Her parents do not need her. She is a homeless person. There are large hounds outside to watch the house. If she dares to run away from the hounds, would tear her to pieces." During the first week, Jaycee was still handcuffed, and her only contact was Phillips. He occasionally brought her some fast food and talked to her. He gave her a bucket for her to use in the toilet. He constantly slept with her at least once a week for the next 3 years. Phillips did not allow her to read and write. Even he did not allow her to mention her own name, and they gave her a false name, Alyssa. Then Phillips also brought her a television, but only allowed her to watch shopping channels, and she had no idea that people were still looking for her. A month and a half later, the Jaycee was moved to a larger room next to the relatively comfortable beds, after which Phillips told her that the evil angels had let him marry her, and that she would have to help him satisfy his needs because society had ignored him. When drunk, he often came to her in search of fun. He often declared that he was God's chosen servant. The fun then ended with tears, and an apology from him accompanied the threats. "If you don't listen, he will sell you." 7 months later, the Jaycee finally met the second person, Nancy, who brought a hypocritical stuffed toy, chocolate, and milk. She apologized to the Jaycee and gave lies to better control her. After nearly 3 years of obedience, the Jaycee was finally allowed to remove the handcuffs. On April 3, 1994, Phillips suddenly brought her some cooked food. This was the first time she had eaten that. Besides cheap food since she was imprisoned, he changed the way he treated her because she had a baby with him at that time. At that time, Jaycee was only 13 years old. Phillips, of course, would not take her to the hospital. He only searched for information and taught her the skills she needed for childbirth. On August 18, 1994, Jaycee gave birth to her first daughter, and she also gave a smile, long lost, because finally there was a companion. She took care of her daughter very well through what she had learned on television.
She came out, and then I saw her. She was beautiful. I felt like I wasn't alone anymore. Had somebody, and I knew I could never let anything happen to her. I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I did.
In 1997, Jaycee gave birth to her second daughter in order to make more space for the two children to live. Philip stopped adding a large tent in the backyard. Jaycee was allowed to leave the room and carry the baby into the tent, although the two children were born by Jaycee herself. But to please his wife, Phillips took the two children to Nancy, and Jaycee took on the role of the eldest sister of the two children. He felt that the only way for the children to grow up was to deceive the police investigation, and in facto, outsiders thought that the two children were Nancy's children, and had no doubt at all. By 2009, 18 years had passed since Jaycee was taken away. Her mother had never given up, and finally a new turning point appeared. On August 24, 2009, Phillips went to the FBI office in San Francisco and left a sheet of paper presenting his views on religion and gender, mainly to describe that he had realized his previous mistakes and that he was no longer guilty. He could help others do the same. And yet, he also brought his two daughters to the Mold, a member of the University of California, to apply for a religious teaching. The process happened to be the participation of the school's police department, at which time he met the head of the department, Lisa Campbell. In the process of meeting Phillips, she thought that he was a divergent, and she also noticed that the two girls that Phillips brought were very strange. Both had a kind of fear of Phillips and were always moody. They were very reserved and was extremely submissive to Phillips. At that time, Lisa felt that something was wrong. To be cautious, she asked Phillips to sign the paper and told him to come back the next day. Then she secretly asked a police officer to investigate him. After investigating, she found out that Philip was a man with a lot of criminal records. Until the afternoon of the next day, Phillips returned to the 2 p.m. appointment with the girls, and they found that the girls looked very pale, as if they had not been exposed to sunlight for a long time. Soon after, Lisa also contacted the probation officer of Phillips to find out the situation. When the probation officer heard that Phillips had brought the two children with them, they also sweated coldly because of their past crimes. He was now banned from living with minors, so the investigators went to the Philippines to investigate his relationship with the girls. However, they only found his wife Nancy and his old mother at home, and the two girls were not found. Philip later explained that the two girls were his relatives, and the parents agreed to allow him to take them to college. The investigators at that time asked him to bring the children and their parents to the parole room to explain the case. The next day, on August 26, 2009, Phillips, Nancy, Jaycee, and her two daughters went to the parole room, where Phillips pointed to Jaycee and said, "This is Alyssa, his relative, and the two girls are Alyssa's children." Jaycee also admitted that she is Alyssa and her two daughters. She also said that Phillips is a good man. He treats her very well. And the children, her two daughters, also like to say that Phillips is very good to them. Looking at the context, it seems that Phillips is a good man. It is because Phillips has prepared for those situations from the day before. But when the investigators would try to verify the identity of the Jaycee, the problem arose. To find out the truth, the investigators separated the parents and children to find out the information. When pressed to provide details that could confirm her identity, the Jaycee became extremely defensive and agitated. The investigators then invited more. When she came to present the incident, finally in front of the police, Jaycee took up the courage to talk about her real name before. She said she was named Jaycee, 18 years ago, she was arrested by the Phillips and was controlled to live in the backyard of his house without being able to escape. The police were shocked to hear the above story and immediately arrested Phillips and his wife. When Jaycee's mother received the call from the police, her feelings burst. She couldn't believe that she could see her daughter again after 18 years of searching. The two then met again. Jaycee did not stop hugging her mother, crying. Fortunately, at that time, Jaycee and her daughter were in good health. Her stepfather was happy to see her again, although the police removed him from the list of suspects. But during the time, there were still many people who suspected that he was the culprit, so he suffered a lot of fatigue. The police then went to the area where Jaycee had been detained before. The scene made the police extremely surprised. The conditions here were so bad. The backyard had 2 makeshift shacks. There was a lot of garbage and discarded furniture, besides a gray car that Phillips used to take her. The room where Jaycee was staying was extremely shabby. It was unbelievable that she had spent 18 years in such an environment, taking care of her 2 daughters alone. Soon Phillips and Nancy were charged with 29 felonies. At first he pleaded not guilty, but before the available evidence, he also pleaded guilty. Until June 2nd, 2011, according to Phillips' state law, was sentenced to 431 years of life imprisonment, and Nancy was sentenced to 36 years of life imprisonment. However, the case has not been resolved because there are many people indirectly causing the above tragedy. Phillips is a person with a criminal record. After being released, he was subject to government supervision, according to official records. Every once in a while, the parole department sends people to inspect Phillips's house. Since after Jaycee was taken away, the investigators had entered the Phillips house 60 times, but they found no strange traces in the backyard. Besides, the police did not put him as a suspect because his house was only 2 hours' drive from Jaycee's house. In addition, in 1976, he had committed a crime with a girl near South Lake Tahoe where Jaycee lived. The police missed too many clues. In 2002, the fire department received a call informing that a child Phillips's family was injured while swimming, and Phillips had no children, but the fire department did not notify the parole department, and no one found out who the child was. In 2006, the neighbors of the Philippines also called the police to tell them. They saw children living in the back of his house. An officer later came to find meeting with Phillips and talking for 30 minutes. However, the backyard is still not searched. It can be said that this is also an irresponsible and negligent part of the police and government agencies. Jaycee has been living in hell for 18 years for the above reason that in July 2010, the state government of California decided to compensate Jaycee $20 million due to their negligence. The chief of the local police department also issued a public statement apologizing to Jaycee. The family of Jaycee then also sued the U.S. government and said, Phillips used to drink alcohol and use contraband when on parole. This is a violation of parole, should have revoked the parole and sent him back to prison. If the authorities strictly enforced, the Jaycee was not taken away, but the case was dismissed by the U.S. court. After returning to her family, Jayce went through a difficult period, but with the help and good treatment of her family, she quickly came out of the darkness and lived happily with her family. To this day, I still believe that each of us holds the key to our own happiness. Try to hold it as much as possible. Today's video ends here, and see you in the next videos. Thank you and goodbye.